Tommy, I'm working with Restream.io today, and I'm not super impressed. But I'm gonna play my little show introduction like I always do, and then I will be right back with Tommy over here. So stay tuned.
Hold on to your goggles. It's time for the Epic Engagement Adventure.
Hey everybody, welcome. Back at the same bot time, same bot channel over here. Today, a special guest. For those of you who have been watching me lately, you know that I'm low key obsessed with Contrepreneur. And my friend Tommy right here gave me that link. So all of you who have watched the videos lately, this is where it comes from. Tommy is a video and just a storytelling professional. What he does behind a camera is magic. And I invited him on the show to come talk to us about what he does and tell us how he engages his folks. Tommy, welcome to the adventure. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I appreciate the introduction. Your $5 is in the post.
I knew I could count on you, my friend. Fabulous. Tell the people what you do, who you are and what you do.
I help people win over their prospects in 2 minutes or less using video testimonials.
God, I love it. Like some introductions are like long and hard to understand. You use that first sentence to put a picture in people's mind. So what tools do you use? What do you use to help people win over their prospects in 2 minutes or less?
Well, in the long ago, the prehistoric era, before, the pandemic happened, when we were, painting on walls, I was filming people in person, and I literally had to get on buses and get stuck in traffic and things like that because that's what people wanted. We tried it out on Zoom because somebody didn't want me to travel, and spend money on me wrecking a hotel. I'm joking, of course. And so we tried it on Zoom, and it was the best one that I'd done for him. He was happier than with the others that we'd gone with a camera to the office of that person. But I didn't think the market would take. So I just kind of put it in the drawer and thought nothing of it. Pandemic happens. Everybody's freaking out. I'm worried. Somebody gets wind that I have this Zoom thing going on in the cupboard. It says, "Can you do one for me?" And we did one. And then somebody gets wind and says, "Can you do one for me as well?" I saw that one. And I had enough to keep me going, just about during the pandemic's worst moments. And then, I thought that the world would go back to normal and we'd all be having to be in person again. And instead, the doors opened up to the American, the Australian, the Canadian markets and the Irish ones. And even the Maltese when I was in England from Malta and vice versa. So there are probably more than one source. I just prefer Zoom because everybody's familiar. It has the least amount of faffing and messing around, and it's easy for people to set up, and I can record it well and edit it well, afterwards. It's pretty easy, and the quality is good if it's set up properly. So that is the tool I use. I mean, I can use MS Teams, but most people struggle with it. So there you go.
Yeah, most people do struggle with MS Teams. I'll tell you, I was one of the first Skype users back in the day. So yeah, Zoom is awesome. Well, so you had to kind of recreate during the pandemic, which most of us had to do in one way or another. What is it that you love about video?
Well, video's a broad term, and there are many kinds. There's the Spielberg type epics, and there's what I'm doing on a very more intimate scale, shall we say? I like the validation. I like seeing people be validated. I was the guy who didn't get picked for the football team, or for the, when they're handing out bibs, during physical education. And I was always one of the guys, 2 people out of about 30 who didn't get a bib. I was like literally visibly a reject. So you can imagine the opposite of that feeling is you're picked. It's you, like the lottery guy pointing the finger at somebody. I like the seeing that people are getting chosen because a lot of them didn't, But beyond that, it's nice to be valued for what we do. There's a scene at the end of A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe where he's been certifiably, with mental problems for many years. And then all his students right to the end when he's older and he's got his grey hair, go up to him and give him what is an honor by putting their expensive pens at his table. And he doesn't realize all along that that's what people thought of him. And that's the thing I like seeing, Don't get me wrong, a lot of the people I work with are coaches and they know they're good. They just don't realize how good. Same with marketers. We all make a difference in people's lives. We all get caught up in the misery and the drama sometimes of business. And there is a fair bit of it from time to time. And it's nice to be told that we do make a difference.
We do. And, it takes a set of objective eyeballs. It takes a person like you to come in and have the artistry to create a story around that person, to create video. I'm fascinated with video. Holy moly, if I could clone myself and have a second career, I would be doing some crazy video stuff because I think that it encompasses so much, doesn't it? When you've got so many things working, the lighting, the sound, the person themselves, whatever they're wearing, it's this little kind of rectangle of us. But you get to focus on, how well that person is represented. I think it's fascinating what you do. Who are the clients that you love working for?
It's a pretty broad church. I mean, I work with a lot of coaches, consultants, mentors, whatever fancy term you want to throw it, and those are poor labels to begin with. Or people in marketing. I've worked with a funeral director before in the past. To be honest, it's just the people I get along with. In every business, and I can say this for the absolute top tier of professionals, of coaches or marketers, whatever. There's people we get on with, and there's people add energy and walk away feeling, I just love working with that person. And then there's people, to coin a northern phrase, do our freaking heads in. We don't get along with so well, and they suck the energy out of us like vampires. And if we can quietly move that clientele out of the way and focus more on getting more of the people who add energy to our business, they'll support us anyway. We'll grow just by being around them, and I prefer to focus on those people and get more of them.
I prefer it too, because at the end of the day, when I'm working with a client who, as you say, gives me energy, I'm getting paid twice. I'm getting paid in the normal way, but that person is also kind of, maybe pushing me to grow or think differently or, have a different kind of adventure with them. And that kind of payment is awesome. It makes me feel like, yeah, this is what I was put here to do. But when I'm working with the other kind, I'm getting I'm getting paid and I'm getting older, and that's it. You can't. I also prefer to attract those kinds of people that really, light my creative fire. Is there anything special that you do to attract your perfect ideal client?
Interesting question. I think the people you work with, because I do my own testimonials, I'm looking in that respect, reflect the kind of people I like to work with, and in a way a bit my own personality, because of our interactions. You kind of pick that up from the way they talk about me. I'm not on about how great I am or whatever, just the personality, as much as anything. I get a lot of my clients, through networking, BNI, or at least I get a lot of my leads through networking. I get a lot of them through LinkedIn, and a lot of that is to do with the way you show up. I'm a mouth-feet northerner who maybe not in print, swears quite a bit. And some people get along with that and some people don't. I'm kind of careful where I shoot my mouth off. But at the same time, the stories I tell and the way I show up is pretty much me. And that's going to reflect people that I get along with. That's going to usually attract people I get along with. And if it doesn't, I'm usually not being myself, or being real. And that, I hate the word authenticity, but if somebody is not true to the way they are, that you'll kind of pull in a different crowd of people. And those are usually the energy vampires.
Familiar with that. And, to some extent, I very often in my early days of business, I failed to represent myself well. I thought that I was doing, saying words that the SEO people wanted me to say and avoiding the words that Facebook didn't want me to say. And I thought that I was doing all the right things, but I didn't seem to be attracting anybody. That I really, the kind of jobs that I was doing were a little odd and it was just kind of a mess. But when I was confident enough in myself to be myself, then things changed a lot for me. So I'm smelling what you're cooking there. Why testimonials? You kind of said that in your intro. Through testimonials, how did that come about?
Because it was cheap and it delivered a high return relatively. I mean, it's now not so cheap, but people pay me for my interviewing and editing expertise and not the technical side of things. When I started out in video, and because I'm a frustrated filmmaker in many respects from film school, but when I first started out, it was like, right, that guy, he's got a suit on, right? And he's got minions working under him and he's got expensive equipment, And like, it'll be years before I get to that level. And then I'll be competing against him. And at some point I got one job from a person who'd known us a long while. And that says a lot for relationships. He knew us for ages before we chatted and arranged to do something. And we were doing a long project with him trying to remember lines when I begged him not to write lines. And it was going pretty difficult. But in the meantime, we were going to film his clients. Showing him doing what he does, because he was a social media guy. He was taking pictures, videos of his clients' work. Now I was taking videos of him taking videos of his clients, right? So whilst I was there, I was sat between him and his client, and both of them were friends of mine. So being British, I could make fun of them both if I wanted to, a little bit. And I said to him, why did you pick him to do your social media? It was a kind of provocative question. And the guy actually sits and thinks about it. He strokes his chin like Ming the Merciless and goes, And without thinking why, I hit the record button. I didn't think it was going to be useful. I'm the kind of guy who will press a record button on anything near enough. Yeah. And he says, well, I didn't want him to do my social media at first. I wanted to do it. But then I realized I got 10 vans. I haven't got the time. So I got him to do it as a trial. And then after a while, I noticed his words started sounding like the way I talk. And I liked that. And that was it. And I didn't think anything of it. And I sent the guy everything else and binned it. That's how little I regarded it at the time. And he says, where's that video where he's saying how great I am? I go, what video? And I sent him the wrong one twice. That's how little thought I'd put into it. And he says, no, you can't have binned it. God's sake, that was the thing I wanted most of all. And he's a marketer, that's how he thinks. And I went digging around because there was a bit of a panic button, hit. And I found it. And he stuck it online almost straight away. And the light bulb goes off and goes, wait a minute, if he wanted it that much, and that cost me next to nothing to make with the least amount of trouble, why am I trying to copycat the guys in suits wearing, with big cameras and hustling for big projects when I could do this? And some people said, oh, that could be the stepping stone to bigger projects. But somebody else said, you could do 3 of those and make it like changing faces like Phil Collins. You got 3 clients on one video. And I thought, that'd be pretty cool. That's all I did. And I told people at my local B&I said, I only do this. And they all go, So you mean that you don't film our faces? We don't have to be in the video. Great, here's some money. Like,
Yeah.
Is it that easy? I was like, right, okay. So I did nothing else for years. Ironically, I do actually film the business owner sometimes now because I get asked. But generally speaking, they love the fact that it was their clients talking about them and not them trying to sell themselves. And it just built upon and built upon and built upon that.
There's something to be said for micro niche. There's something to be said for being a specialist in what you do. I would much rather hire an expert at this one small thing than hire a generalist who has to keep up on a whole bunch of stuff and communicate with the guys in this or compete with the people in the suits. I would much rather hire somebody whose entire business is this one thing because I know I'm going to get the value out of it. Yeah, well, that's fascinating.
Well, it's interesting because you're getting a lot of people DIYing it now, which is great. People believe in it and people are making a habit of doing it. And I, as you know, I preach that. And there's a lot of people at the bootstrapping level who can only do that and should. And then you get the people who have got the money but are trying to save it by DIYing it, ironically, when they could give it out, which is interesting. People don't pay me because I'm a brilliant technician. That's why I avoided expensive camera equipment in the first place. People pay us because I can interview. I listen to people and I'm curious as to what they've got to say, and then I just rearrange the dots. But as a technical skill, it goes down its own rabbit hole. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think some niches you don't know how niche they are until you go down them.
Well, absolutely, and then when people ask you what you do, you don't have 30 seconds of people used to ask me how I do what I did a long time ago, and I was kind of everybody's technology marketing coach, and so I sort of did everything. And people would ask me what I did at some marketing event or whatever, and I would laugh and I would say it would be easier to explain what I don't do. And they always laughed. I mean, I can make people laugh, but it leaves people so confused when we can't articulate what we do. And when you micro niche, you can say, I mean, yours is awesome. I get people to, fall in love with you in under 2 minutes with a testimonial. Okay, I need people to fall in love with me in under 2 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's easy for people to match to that when you've micro niche down. Well, one of the many flavors of network.
Well, there's the pitching way of doing it, which is kind of me trying to explain in a very tiny amount of time. It is almost like a cold elevator pitch style description. And what you do to a degree what we both do has quite a technical element. But in your case, for example, the bots end of it, I wouldn't try to dare explain to anybody what you do, right? One of the bigger influences on my own work was a guy called Andrew Gibson, who wrote an interesting book called What's Your URP? And I would attend his lectures. And his whole point was, don't try to explain, how plumbing works or how bots work, just try to explain it in terms of outcomes. You helped a person in this sector make this much money, or get a contract with this type of firm and take more time out to spend with their family, with less drama, whatever the result is. And then tell the type of stories that you want more work from. If it's a marketing story, that's obviously going to get you more marketers. So tell those types of stories. It's the same thing when you're sharing testimonials. If you're sharing, stuff related to financial advice, you're gonna more likely get financial related, clients coming to your door. So the stories you tell and the testimonials you share are going to kind of attract more of that type of client. Some of the nuances between sectors are so great that they're going to think that you need to know their sector quite well for them to work with you.
Yeah. Gosh, I love what you chose to do and the way that you chose to do it. That's a beautiful story about that little bit that you threw in the bin, and having and the client needing you to rescue that because they thought it was the most important thing. That's awesome stuff. Now, so to the question that I ask every episode here, how do you engage your audience, Tommy?
You mean how? That's quite a broad
How do
question.
you
I struggle with
engage,
broad.
like when you communicate and first connect with people, how do you use engagement to your advantage? How do you get them to interact with you?
Well, I I was influenced a lot by a book by Stephen Thomas, who wrote the Networking for Dummies book, and you know, he had a different title since then. I can't remember if it was Joined Up Networking. I have to get it right. But what Stefan said was that, you network online and offline. Now, originally, offline was all in person, and technically we're on Zoom. So technically it's online, but it's personal interaction. So I would still call it offline. The online stuff is what people see when you're not talking to them directly, but you're putting stuff out there. So I might network. I mean, I'm networking in tomorrow morning, with my BNI group, right? And that's when I meet them in person. But from between this Friday and the next Friday, they're going to be seeing the content I put out. A lot of them. The stuff I put out is adding something to what they already know about me. The more good content I put out, the more they start to understand what I do, buy into my story, however I want to tell it, or not buy into it, depending on how they're way inclined, and I engage two ways, in person and when we're not talking in person, and both those add up.
It starts to compound, doesn't it? It starts to, you were talking about your posts online and everything, and when people kind of start seeing that, seeing what you're producing, it sort of starts having a compounding effect. And I know the more consistent I am, the more the more meetings get added to my calendar, for sure. Well, that is a great answer. That's a great answer. And getting folks to interact. Sometimes it can be hard. Sometimes people are a little jaded, a little guarded. They've gotten too many terrible pitches in their inboxes or whatever. But obviously, you have found a way around that. You brought a little gift for the audience. Can you explain what that is while I put it in the chat?
Yeah, I made a PDF of all that was in my head that I could teach people and write down, at least for them to consume without their heads bursting. So on the subject of video testimonials and how to make them and how to share them and how to use them, if they download that, they can take a pretty decent stab of it without me being there. And, I'm always here to answer questions.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So hit that link, and what y'all will be able to do is generate, using the instructions on there, generate something for yourself, and time around for questions. A very smart individual to talk to, as if you didn't know that by watching us for the past half an hour, but somebody who is a great visual storyteller, and I really like that about you. You have any last pearls of wisdom for us as we sign off today? Anything
People are
final?
done with smoke and mirrors.
I'm sorry, what?
People are not really keen on smoke and mirrors. We often try to pretend to be something that we aren't because we're after getting contracts that'll pay more towards the rent, right? Or that's what we think we're going to do, but it'll end up doing our heads in, right? That makes people unhappy. To be honest, people zone in on what they relate to, And
Yep.
you know, years ago, maybe everybody did have to wear the suit and have to act in a certain way. But what I found is there are enough eccentrics wearing purple ties and mohawks and, you know, having white stripes of paint in their hair that, and don't get me wrong, you know, I'm not like for one crowd and anti the other. But what I'm saying is there are enough people who are a little bit quirky or they go their own way for everybody else to find the right tribe. You know, we found each other randomly at an event, and you're in the middle of the States, and I'm in the middle of the Mediterranean. And before, we used to, you know, I lived in a village. I grew up in a tiny little village, and there wasn't people that I really, really gelled with. There's a couple of people I got along with, but the chances of me finding them were pretty slim because of the geographics, right? That not business, just friendships. And now, because we're hopping all over the place, we don't have to just hang around with people that we mildly get along with. We can actually find the people that we can move mountains with, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing I've noticed with business. You know, you can talk to somebody other side of the world that can put the idea in your head that can blow everything up. And the only way you're going to find those people, and they're going to come to you, is if you show up as you are. Come as you are, like, you know, Kurt Cobain said.
I think that's great. I mean, for me, the principle of identification is it's the biggest thing you need to know about marketing. No matter where you are, no matter what you do, no matter what technology you employ. You know, as you were talking about, when you get these testimonials, it is about somebody seeing that and going, yeah, that's like me. That person understands my problem. Gosh, I want to thank you for being here. It has been lovely for me. I know you stayed up much later than you usually do to get online with me. And I just want to thank you and thank you for the gift. Thank you for the gift that you gave the people. And gosh, I hope I get to interview you again sometime, Tommi.
Oh, I'd love that. It's a laugh.
All right. All right, my friends. Well, that's it for this time. Same bot time, same bot channel next week. We'll see you on the next epic engagement adventure. See ya.